Do you find learning for high-stakes examination a challenging task? Have you spent hours and hours in learning about a topic only to find out a few months later that you barely remember a fraction of what you learned before? Are you tired of the endless flashcards and the revision schedules that only lead to frustration? Learning doesn't have to be this way. Learning should be something like solving a Sudoku puzzle or painting or putting together a jigsaw puzzle. It should be a fun and a deeply engaging activity. My name is Dr. Karthik. I am an anesthesiologist. I work in Dublin, Ireland. I can tell you, I'm not a memory champion. I can understand the concepts, but memorizing facts, boy, that's not easy for me at all. So during my school days, just with my sheer willpower, along with multiple revisions and repetitions, I got into medical school. Once I got into medical school, the amount of information that I need to retain exploded exponentially. And there's no way I could just do multiple revisions and get over the stuff. It's just simply impossible. So during my third year of my medical school, which was back in 2000, I started experimenting with this new technique. And it evolved over the last 2.5 decades to what it is at the moment. I call it Gamt-based learning. What did I achieve with this? So I cleared my medical school. I got into postgraduate medical degree in my first attempt after my medical school back in India. And after I came to Ireland, I passed my anesthesia fellowship, both primary and final. I passed my UK FRCA exam, and I even passed the medical membership exam in Ireland. And these exams are all pretty high-stake exams with very low pass percentage. And I was doing all these exams while I was working a full-time job as an anesthetic trainee, working 80 to 100-hour week. And I also cleared my USMLEs. I cleared all the 3 steps, and I scored 99 in all 3 steps. Now, there are probably a lot more people who achieved more than this. But I know where I came from. I know the difficulties that I had in memorizing a bunch of information. For me personally, I consider these things as a very significant achievement. This is my first YouTube video, and this is the first time I'm talking about Gamt to the world. So sit tight for the next 10 minutes. Your learning experience is going to change forever. Okay, so let's start the timer. I call this technique Gamt-based learning and is based on 3 pillars. So the first pillar is what I call creating the Gamt. Second pillar is Gamt learning framework. And the third pillar is having a recall strategy. So all these 3 combined together forms the foundation for Gamt-based learning. So let's take the first one. So let's say, what does creating a Gamt mean? Okay. Gamt stands for Glyph Assisted Memory Technique. Okay. So we need to understand what is meant by glyph. Glyph is different types of representation of a character. For example, the letter A can be written like this, or this can represent letter A. This is letter A as well. This is letter A. This is letter A. This is letter A. So if you have a table like this, that is letter A because the outline of this table resembles the letter A. And the same way you have something upside down, again resembles the letter A, right? Similar to B, you have this resembles letter B. This is B. This is B. This is upside down B. This is B lying on the side. This is B. And this is D. This can also be B flipped on the other side. So let's say you're reading about a topic. The first thing you want to do is understand the topic and select the keywords from the topic that you want to remember. And then use the letters or alphabets or first letters in the keywords to create the Gamt. So just to give an example of how to generate a keyword, let's assume we are going to read this topic. So this is about memory. So there are 3 types of memory. So we have sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. So you read about the functions of the sensory memory and have a good understanding of that. And there are three types: visual sensory memory, auditory, and tactile. So the V, A, and T will be the three key letters for this section of the topic. Then you go and read for the short-term memory. So you read about the function, you have an understanding of what the function of short-term memory is. And then there's four components: visual spatial sketchpad, phonological buffer, central executive, and episodic buffer. So V for visual spatial sketchpad, phonological buffer, central executive, and episodic buffer. These are the four key letters for this section of the topic. Obviously, you need to understand what each of these things mean. So what is the function of visual spatial sketchpad, phonological buffer, etc. Then we go to the long-term memory. So it's divided into two. So explicit memory and implicit memory. The explicit, we have two types: episodic and semantic. And you read about the function. So explicit and some episodic and semantic. Sorry, these two are the key letters from this section of the topic. Then implicit, they have procedural, priming, associative memory, non-associative memory. Procedural, priming, associative, and non-associative. So this is the four key letters. So this is how you generate keywords and key letters for a topic, and then you use these to incorporate to generate a Gamt. So let's say you have the four keywords A, C, R, and B in a given topic, right? This is the four keywords that you come up with, and you want to remember these keywords. So what you do then is you create glyphs from these keywords, combine these glyphs to form an art. So these four keywords can actually become a flower pot. How does it become a flower pot? So if you see, the base of the flower pot resembles the letter C, okay? The top of the flower pot here resembles the letter A, and you have the grass that's growing in the flower pot resembles the letter R, okay? And then the flower itself resembles the letter B. So you have these keywords translated into a Gamt, which is a flower pot. So let's say you have to remember the keywords D, T, and A. So you can actually make a tennis racket out of it. So how do I make it? So this part of the tennis racket resembles the letter D. The outline of the tennis racket, which is a very simple tennis racket, resembles the letter A, okay? And the strings obviously resemble the letter T, right? So instead of remembering these keywords, you just have to remember a tennis racket. That's it. Same thing with here. This, in a nutshell, is what Gamt is all about. So for example, if you have a topic, say types of memory, the short-term memory and the different types of long-term memory, and these are the keywords that you generate by reading the topic, these keywords becomes this. And it's labeled clearly, so at the end of this video, you can take your time to see which part represents which particular keyword, right? And you will very quickly realize that it's much more easier to retain the concepts or retain the topic. The second pillar is called Gamt Learning Framework. The Gamt works as an anchor, and it allows you to engage in much more deeper learning of the topic, which in turn translate into better memory. The concepts involved in the Gamt Learning Framework are things like comparing, contrasting, associating with similar concepts, asking a lot of why questions, organizing the information, looking for images, figures from the topic, also applying the knowledge, using past question papers to apply the knowledge more effectively, teaching others to apply the knowledge, simulation, etc. So all these concepts are integrated into what is called Gamt Learning Framework. And the final concept is what I call recall strategy. So no learning technique works efficiently unless you have a clear recall strategy. The recall strategy varies according to the technique that you use, and for Gamt, we have a specific type of recall strategy to get the maximum benefit out of it. Now, because Gamt is stored in the form of an image, it's much more easier for you to recall these images. So the recall strategy is much more simpler, much more easier in Gamt compared to the other techniques. This is a very, very brief overview of the Gamt-based learning, right? What we have done here is we have taken a bunch of information and we have converted that into an image, right? So you're hacking different parts of your brain and synergizing the effects of all these different parts combined together. So the Gamt is based on several principles which are deeply rooted in strong scientific foundations. First thing is called picture superiority effect. So it's been very well proven that images are better retained than words. And there have been studies running back over decades to kind of show this particular concept, which is called picture superiority effect. And because in Gamt, you use images or pictures to recall the content, you actually access that particular effect. Then the second thing is what is called a drawing effect. There is a landmark study published in 2016 where the researchers found the recall capacity is doubled when you actually draw the stuff. So there is no clear reason why that happens, but part of the explanation is that because drawing involves the motor component of your brain, drawing involves the creative aspect of your brain, and it also involves a bit of a kinesthetic component of the brain as well. So you're not only relying on the sensory part of the brain, you're also relying on other parts of the brain to enhance the retention of information. And we are harnessing that effect in Gamt, right? And then we have something called the power of association. It's a well-known fact that if you want to remember something, you associate that something that you already know. That's exactly what you're doing in Gamt. So you take a bunch of information and you're associating that with a Gamt, say a tennis racket or a flower pot. So you know exactly how it looks. The information for that is already in your brain. You don't have to store it again. So you just have to attach those information with the new data coming in. The fourth thing that you're doing is you're introducing fun and creativity into your learning. Anytime you hear the words fun and creativity, you obviously get dopamine surge with that. When you think about Gamt, it's like Sudoku for learning. It's actually Sudoku and jigsaw puzzle combined together, but a little bit more complex. The beauty here is there's more than one right answer. So the glyphs can be arranged in multiple different ways. So I got flower pot for the keywords that I mentioned before and a tennis racket for the other keywords. You might come up with something entirely different. So this whole activity is intensely stimulating to the brain and it's very deeply engaging. You will lose sense of time. That brings us to the next point, which is getting into the flow state. By nature, the Gamt kind of drags you into that flow state effortlessly. You don't have to actually make an effort. You have to sit to learn a topic and you create the keywords, and then before you know it, time flies and you come out making a Gamt. This act of getting a Gamt out of a topic gives you an immense sense of satisfaction and the dopamine surge, so much so that it actually can become addictive. So you actually enjoy learning and you start to look forward to learning activities. So there it is, Gamt-based learning based on 3 pillars: creating Gamt, Gamt-based learning framework, and recall strategy. 2 things strike out from this method straight away. The first thing is this technique can be captured digitally. So when you convert a topic into an art, you just need a pen and paper. So pen, pencil, paper, you draw the Gamt, you label the parts, take a picture, that's it, it's done. Or you can draw it on a tablet and you can send it to anybody. So this can be captured digitally, which is a significant advantage. And the next point, obviously, in current world is that this can be shared. So, this internet connected world gives you tremendous possibilities. Imagine millions of Gamt for millions of topics that can be accessed by you instantly. So the potential is enormous. So I'm going to give you guys a bit of a challenge, a bit of a puzzle for you to solve. So these are the keywords. So I'm calling it Gamt Challenge 1. So I'm going to be more challenges in the future. Gamt Challenge 1. So these are the keywords, the key letters that I want you to use to create a Gamt. So come up with a Gamt using these 5 keywords. And how do you submit it? So you can reply to this video, or you can go to gamtpedia.com, where there is a link for you to upload the Gamt. Make sure you mention Gamt Challenge 1 when you're uploading the content, and I will look at it and announce the winner in the next video. Okay, there are going to be a lot more videos in the future, and there's going to be step-by-step instruction on how to create a Gamt. There's going to be clear, detailed explanation on what is Gamt learning framework. There's also going to be detailed explanation on the recall strategy. There's going to be another video explaining the scientific basis underpinning the Gamt-based learning, and much, much more. So stay tuned. Please take up the challenge. This Gamt-based learning is just only starting. So everything is done from home, basically. So if the website or the content is not as refined, I apologize. As I encourage you guys to look into the substance rather than the style of presentation. I hope this helps a lot of people, and please keep the comment coming and the likes coming, because that will motivate me to produce my next video. Hopefully it won't be too long. The motto for us is learn it, Gamt it. Don't forget to visit Gamtpedia.com. Thank you.